The Last Word with Lawrence O'Donnell starts right now. Hey, Lawrence.
Hey, Jen. Charlie Cook is out with some new looks at the possible Senate races tonight, finding things very favorable, getting more favorable in many situations for the Democrats. We're going to have Josh Turek join us. He's been on your program, I know. He's the Democratic Senate candidate hopeful in Iowa, and it could be the kind of Iowa that Senator Tom Harkin used to run in successfully as a Democrat and represent. We'll see what Josh Turek has to say after about a week of campaigning now after getting the nomination.
Yeah, that's great. I just talked to James Tallarico. There are places that people never thought possible for a long time that are definitely in play, and Iowa's definitely one of them.
And Texas is one of the things Charlie Cook is talking
True.
about. The Texas Senate race is one of the things he has his eye on. James Tallarico has made it really, really competitive for Democrats this time.
Yeah, it's neck and neck. And one of the things that's so interesting is these Republicans who are regretting. They have buyer's remorse about their Trump vote, and now they're looking around. So that's good for Josh Turek. It's good for James Tallarico.
Yep, we're going to get right to it. Thanks, Jen.
Thanks, Lawrence.
How many Trump White House staffers does it take to change a light bulb? We have no idea. That actually might be one of the few things that the most incompetent White House staff in history, led by the most incompetent White House chief of staff in history, can actually do. So I'm going to take a wild guess that it might only take one Trump White House staffer to replace a light bulb. But how many doctors does it take to give Donald Trump his annual physical exam? Hint. It is the largest number of doctors who have ever given a physical to an occupant of the White House. And it might be the largest number of doctors who have ever given anyone in the world a physical exam. 22. Yes, 22. The Washington Post is reporting that Donald Trump set a record with his 22 doctors under the headline this week. Trump sees 22 medical specialists, appearing to set new bar for presidents. The article includes this comment. "It is an extraordinary number," said Jonathan Reiner, longtime cardiologist for former Vice President Dick Cheney. What specialties do they represent? Why so many? I have a question. How many of them are psychiatrists? Because if the answer is 0, then 22 doctors isn't enough. Not for Donald Trump. Dick Cheney, who had more heart surgeries than anyone who's ever served as president or vice president, had fewer doctors than Donald Trump has. Donald Trump's personal physician, whose title in the White House is Physician to the President, is a United States Navy captain. So, like many previous White House physicians, the president is both his patient and his commander-in-chief, which means it's up to Donald Trump to decide when and if his doctor, the Navy captain, is ever going to become a Navy admiral. Captain Sean Barbarella, the White House physician, said that Donald Trump is in, quote, excellent health. He actually used the words excellent health for Donald Trump. In the Washington Post article about Donald Trump's 22 doctors, a White House official is quoted telling this lie. "We have nothing to hide." The Trump White House has something to hide about everything, including Donald Trump's 22 doctors and his health. Because the very next line in the Washington Post article after the quote from some White House liar saying we have nothing to hide is the White House has often declined to answer specific questions about Trump's medical assessments, such as what prompted the president to undergo a second physical exam at Walter Reed National Military Medical Center last year. And there's this. Trump's medical reports also no longer include a common hair loss prevention drug that his physician said he routinely used during his first term in office. White House officials have declined to comment on Trump's past use of the drug, finasteride, and whether he had stopped taking it. So The lying White House official who says we have nothing to hide is hiding. Whether Donald Trump still takes a hair loss drug, they're lying about that. They can't tell you the truth about that. When you work in Donald Trump's White House and you issue a written report about his annual physical examination, it's actually titled his annual physical examination, and it's no longer annual, it's actually frequent, and you're supposed to reveal in that document all the drugs that the president takes, you refuse to say whether he takes a hair loss drug. But you do include this on page 2 of your 3-page medical report. AI-enhanced electrocardiogram analysis estimated his cardiac age, an established measure of cardiovascular vitality, to be approximately 14 years younger than his chronological age. I ran that line by a cardiologist tonight, and his response was, quote, "Such bullcrap." And I cleaned that up a bit. The White House physician is claiming that AI estimates Donald Trump's cardiac age is 65 years old while he's now 79 years old. So Donald Trump's White House physician, who must obey all orders given to him by Donald Trump, is saying that this guy's cardiac age is 14 years younger than his chronological age of 79. We know how much Donald Trump really, really hates being old. And so Donald Trump's physician is trying to tell you to just think of him as being a 65-year-old guy. Okay. Here's a 65-year-old guy. That's George Clooney playing softball in Central Park. Let's see Donald Trump try that. Now, of course, it's unfair to compare any of us mere mortals to George Clooney, but the fact is that the photograph of Donald Trump on the screen right now, beside George Clooney, was taken 14 years ago when Donald Trump was 65, the same age as George Clooney in that photograph. So no, Donald, no one who doesn't work under orders from you in the White House is ever going to think of you as being the same age as George Clooney. What is important about Donald Trump's 22 doctors and the White House lie that they have nothing to hide about those 22 doctors and Donald Trump's attempt in a medical report to make himself 14 years younger is Donald Trump's unrelenting desperation. He is the most desperate man ever to sit behind the desk in the Oval Office, and everyone knows it. Everyone in the world knows that about Donald Trump, and everyone in the world who can take advantage of Donald Trump's desperation does take advantage of Donald Trump's desperation. And now we are watching the Iranian dictatorship take advantage of Donald Trump's desperation to make a deal with them every day. Donald Trump tried to get another day of drama today, announcing that he was calling off an attack on Iran tonight because he has basically made a deal with Iran to end his war.
We have a deal that Iran will never have a nuclear weapon, which was the whole purpose of what we had to go through to get this. So it was a big, very big thing. But we have a signing soon, and the documents are in pretty final shape. So we'll see. We'll see. Very good. Should be done. That should be done pretty quickly.
How old do you think he looks in that clip? We already had a deal with Iran in which Iran promised in writing never to seek, develop, or acquire in any way nuclear weapons. But Donald Trump, in the single most destructive act of American diplomacy in the 21st century, decided to break that deal with Iran. And now he is begging Iran to put in writing for him what Iran put in writing for President Obama after a successful multi-year negotiation by Secretary of State John Kerry. The Iranian dictatorship is not facing midterm elections this year like Donald Trump is. The Iranian dictatorship does not live under the political pressure they watch Donald Trump squirming under every single day.
And if it doesn't get done for any reason, which I can't imagine that not happening, they want to sign it as much as I do or more. I would say they want to sign it more, maybe a lot more.
So Donald Trump, who's facing the worst political polling of his presidency, is pretending that the Iranian regime is more eager to sign a deal with Donald Trump than he is to sign a deal with them, even though Donald Trump is the one who has repeatedly, every other day for 104 days of his war, lied about how eager Iran is to sign a deal with him. The New York Times reports shortly after Donald Trump said that Iran's top leadership had signed off on a deal, Iran's state broadcaster, quoting the spokesman for Iran's foreign ministry, said those claims were speculative. Iran had not reached a final decision about the agreement, the broadcast reported, adding, nothing has been finalized. The report said Iran would not compromise on its red lines. Previously, those have included its ability to maintain a nuclear program. So, just judging by the public record, as of tonight, who sounds more desperate to sign a deal? Donald Trump or the Iranian dictatorial regime? A new poll finds that 67% say that Donald Trump has been somewhat or very ineffective in negotiating with Iran. It is very likely that 100% of the Iranian regime believes Donald Trump has been ineffective in negotiating with them. Donald Trump has been proving for years now that he is not educable. Not only does Donald Trump not know any American history that preceded his birth, he doesn't know the American history that he personally lived through, even as an adult. When talking about the 13 Americans who have been killed in Donald Trump's war in Iran, he once again today lied about the war in Vietnam, the war that he personally avoided by getting a doctor's note to claim that the feet he spent the rest of his life playing golf on could never survive the discomfort of combat boots. Here's Donald Trump today using Vietnam War dead and lying about that number in order to justify the Trump war dead.
We've lost 13 soldiers in 2 wars. In Venezuela, we lost none, took over the country. And in Iraq, in Iran, we lost 13. In Vietnam, we lost hundreds of thousands, 19 years. Nobody says that.
Nobody says that. Because as everyone of Donald Trump's age who lived through that war knows, we lost about 58,000 Americans in Vietnam, not hundreds of thousands. The exact number, which Donald Trump should know, because it is possible that one of the men in that number took Donald Trump's place at his draft board in New York City when Donald Trump managed to avoid military service. The exact number of American war dead in Vietnam was 58,220. Now, I have repeated that on this program after Donald Trump has gotten it wrong, and not one of those lying incompetents in the Trump White House has been able to put that number in front of that man so that he can at least have the decency to use the correct number, to honor each one of the people represented in that number. But that Trump White House is so poisonously stupid, every single one of them, that they're going to let that buffoon they work for continue to go out there and lie about our Vietnam War dead. And he's so relentlessly ignorant, we don't even know if he's lying, because Donald Trump just might have absolutely no idea and has never had any idea how many Americans were killed in Vietnam. And he does not care. That's for sure. He does not care. He thinks it's hundreds of thousands. That is Donald Trump's desperation on display, the desperation to diminish the loss of 13 Americans in his war in Iran, which has so far accomplished nothing. And to do that, Donald Trump desperately lies, or just wildly guesses, about the number of Americans killed in Vietnam. Donald Trump isn't the only desperate one on the Trump team. It seems the Trump cabinet has a desperate daily competition to see who can debase themselves by saying the most insane thing in praise of Donald Trump. And today's clear winner was presidential candidate Marco Rubio.
When President Kennedy announced that we were going to put a man on the moon and return him safely to the earth, no one thought that was possible, and we did it. We are a nation founded on doing what no one else dared to do and no one else aspired to do. And at some level, that's what this whole company, what UFC has been.
That is some deeply perverted stuff. How desperately twisted can your mind be to compare President Kennedy's announced plan for American astronauts to reach the moon with Donald Trump's despicable vulgarity in bringing the UFC, the ultimate fighting championship, to the White House? What Marco Rubio is right about is that no one else would dare to do that. And more importantly, he's right that no one, of course, aspired to do anything that Donald Trump is doing in the White House, anything that Donald Trump is doing to degrade the White House. But what Marco Rubio is lying about is that when President Kennedy announced that we were going to put a man on the moon, saying no one thought that was impossible, that no one thought that was possible, that's a lie. Marco Rubio says no one believed JFK when he said we were going to do that. He's lying. We did think it was possible. And President Kennedy simply saying it made more people believe it was possible. People around the world believed it was possible to send someone to the moon because the President of the United States said it was. And then, of course, the United States proved it was possible and did it. Everyone knew. Everyone in the world could know then that the President of the United States would not have announced the plan to send astronauts to the moon unless the President knew it was possible, knew it could be done, and knew it would be done. And now the whole world knows. After the Washington Post documented Donald Trump telling over 30,000 lies in his first term in the White House, that if Donald Trump says it, the whole world knows it's probably a lie. Leading off our discussion tonight is Democratic Senator Peter Welch of Vermont. He is a member of the Senate Finance Committee and the Senate Judiciary Committee. Senator Welch, thank you very much for starting off our coverage tonight. Donald Trump is once again playing the game of the Iran war is over. He's actually said at another moment today that it's over, it's completely over. The deal is done. Iran doesn't seem to think so.
Well, the fact is that, you remember, Trump said that he blew up all the nuclear material. That didn't happen. He wanted regime change. We got a new Ayatollah. He said the missiles would be destroyed. Our own CIA says there's got 75% intact. And what the reality is that Trump, he is in a stalemate. And to use his phrase, he doesn't have the cards. Because what happened after the B-1s dropped the bunker buster bombs is Iran closed the Strait of Hormuz. And that is having an incredible impact on the world economy and us right here. And the second thing is that his ally, Mr. Netanyahu, is in disagreement with Trump. Trump does desperately want to negotiate resolution, something that will be less favorable than the Obama JCPOA, as you mentioned. But he's got a partner who wants to escalate the war, not end it. And he's displaced 1 million people in Lebanon. So Trump's in a jam, and he desperately wants that deal. I hope he gets a deal, because it's really important to us that this war end. But there's nothing that's going to come out of this that remotely resembles the purpose for which Trump justified his unilateral decision to go to war.
So yesterday he said he loves inflation. Today he bragged about spending $250 million just yesterday on his attack on Iran yesterday. He bragging that cost $250 million, which, by the way, is one of the only cost numbers we've gotten from the Trump administration about how much this thing is costing.
Well, that's right. And keep in mind, the basic promise he made running is he was not going to get us into Mideast wars. And here we are, unilateral decision. The war is probably costing us about $2 billion a day. But there's two things here that I think are really starting to resonate, even among my Republican colleagues. And it's reflected in the poll collapse that Trump has. One is his magic, where he was so disruptive. People thought that was about them, that he was going to help them. What they're now seeing is that it's about Trump and everything he's doing to enrich himself and his family. So it's really epitomized by that remark that he doesn't care about inflation. The second thing is that, I saw that JFK reference. People want purpose to be restored to politics. What we've seen with Trump is it really is all about him. It's all about his family. It's all about self-enrichment. We have our 250th anniversary, something that all of us have a right to share and share together. He wants to make it a personal monument to himself. People in this country aspire to having their life be in service of others, whether you're in public office, you're a local select board member, you're a teacher. And the purpose is about helping others. It's not just getting ahead and elbowing everybody else out of the way.
I want to get your reaction to some reporting in the Wall Street Journal tonight saying that there's a group of Republicans, they're not sure they even have all the Republicans in the House, who are interested in trying to make a move, some kind of legislative, some kind of congressional vote in the House to what they call expunge Donald Trump's impeachments, his two impeachments by the House of Representatives. There's nothing in the Constitution that allows it, that it doesn't seem it would have any legal meaning. And the reporting is they don't even think they have the votes for it yet. What's your reaction to it?
Well, it's more of the same. It's pretty astonishing. But it's that point I made about purpose, because the purpose those folks have is to serve Donald Trump. And Donald Trump won't even appoint anybody to a major position like Director of National Intelligence unless their first and last orientation is loyalty to him, and the Republicans push back. But Trump is trying to rewrite history. January 6th didn't happen. That's number one. Number two, even though people were convicted of beating up on cops, he pardoned them. And number three, of course, he is still trying to get that fund to pay them off. So this expungement effort is more servile conduct on the part of people who should know better. But I think people are getting sick of that. I think they really are. The Kennedy reference, of course, is near and dear to me. But what's exciting for people is if they have a sense that we're in this together and that we want to make our communities better, and we want to make our government better, and we want to thrive together.
Senator Peter Welch, thank you very much for starting off our coverage tonight.
Thank you.
And coming up, retired Lieutenant General Mark Hertling joins us next. Today, Donald Trump said this about his war in Iran.
We can walk in there tomorrow. We could take soldiers. I don't want to have boots on the ground, but if I wanted to, we could put a small group of soldiers and take over the whole place. They're finished.
Joining us now is Lieutenant General Mark Hertling, retired commander of the U.S. Army in Europe. He is an MS now, military analyst. General, I want to get your reaction to what we just heard Donald Trump say.
Well, when I first saw his posting last night about taking over Kharg Island, it concerned me, Lawrence, because truthfully, I'm going to go back to about 1988 when I was a young major at the School of Advanced Military Studies at Fort Leavenworth, and we were actually doing a war game with Iran as the subject area. And we were also not only doing the consequences of a maneuver into Iran for potential operations as a contingency, but we were also watching what the Iraqis were doing. And at that time, Iraq was in an 8-year war with Iran. And for 4 of those years, they had attempted to overcome Kharg Island, the very area that President Trump was talking about today. They understood that it was a decisive point It was an opportunity to basically destroy Iran's economic system, but also influence their political and military actions. For 4 years, the Iraqis, who at the time had the fourth largest army in the world under Saddam Hussein, could not do that. It was such a tough operation, and it didn't affect the entire nation of Iran. It certainly did close, and those were called the tanker wars, as you and I both recall. They were able to do a lot of destruction, but they never persuaded Iran during that period of time after 4 years to succumb to their demands.
What does it mean when a commander-in-chief, and we've never seen this before, but when a commander-in-chief is constantly talking about how easy it is to do whatever he wants to do in this war, including putting in ground troops, if he would just decide to do it?
Yeah, it's interesting because going back to Clausewitz said, everything in war is simple and the simplest things are difficult. If you haven't experienced combat, if you haven't experienced war, you don't understand how hard things are when you're putting forces on the ground. And for an individual, any individual, to keep saying, I could end this war in a minute, or I could achieve decisive victory in a week, it's just ludicrous, because they don't understand the human dimensions, the will and the resources that are involved in combat. And it's insulting to those who do wear the uniform and who have to command those troops.
Let's listen to something else Donald Trump said. This is about now, he's talking about these ships that he is imagining passing through the strait. Let's listen to this.
Bombed their radar and everything, so they couldn't see what was going on. And we took out some nights 25 ships, some nights 15. Last 4 or 5 nights we did 25, 22, 21, 26, 18, and 14. Who else would remember those numbers? Nobody.
Admiral Kirby was here last night, and he said that he seems to be talking about the ships we already knew about.
Yeah. And Admiral Kirby was a surface warfare officer. I would suspect he knows about those kind of things. He and I are very good friends. We've talked about our Army and Navy debates, but we've also talked about our kinship in combat. And Admiral Kirby, I saw him last night on your show, Lawrence, and he was exactly right. There have been escorts, not escorts, as Admiral Kirby mentioned. There were methods of getting some ships out of through the Strait of Hormuz. But also, as I think Admiral Kirby mentioned, the New York Times reported that about a month ago. So, the president could list those numbers off the top of his head. I'm not sure how many of them are correct, but that has been going on for some time.
As we go forward, what would you be looking for in terms of public comment, if any, from the Iranian side to indicate they might actually be close to a deal?
Yeah, from the very beginning, Lawrence, I've watched this closely, and we seem to have a huge delta between what Iran is looking for, which is basically sanctions relief, relief of frozen assets, the allowance of them to basically control the Strait of Hormuz and maybe charge tariffs on ships that are using their ports. So they are interested in the fiscal requirements and the stopping of any kind of kinetic operations on their soil. It seems like President Trump is now focused exclusively on nuclear capabilities of Iran. But over the last couple of weeks, the last 3 months during this operations, those end states have changed multiple times. So when you look at the potential for a memorandum of understanding of what is going to be discussed allegedly in Europe, as the president said today, I would like to see what kind of negotiators are going to be there, who is negotiating for the Iranian government, what are their final stipulations, what do they want to talk about in the memorandum of understanding. We know what the president wants to talk about, but how close would they be in terms of exchanging some of the dynamics? And as you said earlier in this program, that as I was watching, we had an agreement with the Iranian government several years ago under the Obama administration, and it took months, over a year, to get that agreement. you're not going to get something very quickly, no matter how much the current president is impatient or wants a deal for whatever reason. It isn't going to happen quickly because treaties between nations who are at war, especially one that has been attacked by the United States and one that has lost trust in us as much as we've lost trust in them, is not going to come quickly. So what am I looking for? I'm looking for someone sitting down at a table and beginning the discussion. And it doesn't even seem like that's going to happen in Europe this week based on what the Iranian foreign ministry said.
General, we have to get to a break, but before we do, I just wanted to get your reaction to what it means when a president completely misstates, wildly misstates, the number of American war dead in Vietnam.
Yeah. As you said a minute ago, I'll reinforce what you said. When you're involved in these conflicts, you know how many have died. I keep a box on my desk, Lawrence, with 253 cards, pictures of soldiers that I lost under my command, and I think about them every single day. When you talk in the hundreds of thousands, as the president has said, when there were just a little over 58,000, which is far too many, and they're on a wall right down the street from where he lives right now, you would think he would get that right. So the hyperbole is strong. The misqualification of different wars compared to the wars that we've been in is just, it's telling, and it's not very comforting for those of us who have been to combat.
Lieutenant General Mark Hertling, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Pleasure, Lawrence. Thank you.
Coming up, after one of his federal prosecutors lost an important case in New York, today Donald Trump nominated that prosecutor for his next Director of National Intelligence. That's next. Donald Trump's Manhattan U.S. Attorney Jay Clayton lost an important case today when New York City Democratic congressional candidate Brad Lander was found not guilty of the criminal charge of physical obstruction in the hallway of the federal courthouse in Manhattan when he was protesting immigration prosecutions in that courthouse. And after losing that big case today, Donald Trump announced he was nominating Jay Clayton to be his next Director of National Intelligence. Joining us now is Democratic Senator Chris Coons of Delaware. He's a member of the Appropriations and the Foreign Relations Committee, as well as the Senate Judiciary Committee. Senator, this is one of those situations where it couldn't be stranger. Donald Trump has named the worst imaginable acting Director of National Intelligence. Does this mean the Senate will rush to confirm Jay Clayton as the better version of Director of National Intelligence?
Well, I sure hope not, Lawrence. Look, to say that he's better at least means he's less awful. Bill Pulte, who was nominated or suggested by President Trump to be the next Director of National Intelligence, got fairly broad pushback quickly because his only qualification was loyalty to Donald Trump, his willingness as the man leading the two largest mortgage agencies in the United States to misuse non-public information to launch attacks after several folks perceived by Trump as his political enemies, whether Lisa Cook on the Federal Reserve Board or Tish James, the Attorney General of New York. And Jay Clayton, an experienced Wall Street lawyer, former head of the SEC, as best as I know, has no more significant experience in intelligence matters than does Bill Pulte. And this is a position, Lawrence, created after 9/11 to coordinate the inputs from 17 other intelligence agencies to help detect, deter, prevent a terrorist attack, to help make sure that America is safe. And in the middle of a still as yet unresolved war of choice against Iran, we need someone in this role who's a real intelligence professional and not a partisan.
If Donald Trump has Pulte in there as the acting director, will Democrats in the Senate feel some pressure to get the Clayton confirmation done just to get Pulte out of there?
Well, I can understand that argument. Pulte's terrible, and I would be very concerned that he would misuse the tools of the office. And we've got the deadline for the Section 702 reauthorization But that doesn't mean that we should race to consider Jay Clayton. He ought to have a thorough and a complete hearing. I understand from recent news reports that it's been scheduled for next week. So that's moving pretty darn quickly. And since he has already been confirmed by Congress previously to head the SEC, there should be some detailed records about his background. But we shouldn't race to confirm someone if they really lack the appropriate credentials. And from what I was able to find about Jay Clayton's recent statements and activities today, his praising the $1.8 billion slush fund, the anti-weaponization fund, that has gotten bipartisan pushback and is a terrible idea, really gives me some pause, some grave concern about whether or not Jay Clayton's the right choice either.
Senator Chris Coons, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Lawrence.
And now, after having had two senators on the show, we're going to be joined by someone who wants to join them in the Senate. Democratic Senate candidates are now within reach of winning control of the United States Senate for the Democrats in November. And one of the new Senate candidates who can help them do that is our next guest, Josh Turek, who won the Democratic nomination for United States Senate in Iowa. Josh Turek joins us next. Our next guest, the Democratic nominee for United States Senate in the state of Iowa, said this when he won the nomination last week.
This campaign has always been about having a senator from Iowa fighting for the people of Iowa, not for the billionaires or the large corporations. This campaign has been about fighting for the middle class, working families, rural communities, small family farms, and working with anyone to address rising costs, stagnant incomes, and out-of-control corruption in D.C. Iowans all over this state have heard our message and felt hope that we can change this state and change this country. Tonight is proof of that.
And joining us now is Iowa State Representative Josh Turek. He is the Democratic nominee for United States Senate in Iowa. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it. You're hoping to go to the United States Senate, where Democrats have been trying to put a stop to Donald Trump's war in Iran with a war powers resolution. What is your position on that?
Yeah, first, good evening, and thank you for having me. I can tell you I can speak on this from a personal standpoint. I come from generations of veterans. Both of my grandfathers served in World War II and Navy men. My grandmother was one of the Rosie the Riveters working on the B-17. My father spent 22 months in Vietnam. It was due to his exposure to Agent Orange in Vietnam is the reasons why I ended up with my disability of spina bifida. I am an example of the generational consequences to these forever wars that we find ourselves into, that when the bombs stop, the consequences do not. And far too often, I think we're finding ourselves in forever wars, spending $1 trillion in Iraq, $1 trillion in Afghanistan. For what? Meanwhile, now we're spending $1 billion in Iran, and we're being told here in Iowa that we don't have money for healthcare or for schools and closing roads. If I'm in the United States Senate, I'm going to do everything I can to prevent us from going into these forever wars that we keep finding ourselves into.
I want to listen again, you weren't here earlier in the program, to something Donald Trump said about the number of war dead in Vietnam, and the way he's comparing this to his war in Iran. Let's listen to this.
We've lost 13 soldiers in 2 wars. In Venezuela, we lost none, took over the country. And in Iran, we lost 13. In Vietnam, we lost hundreds of thousands, 19 years. Nobody says that.
What's your reaction to that?
We lost 58,000, just over, brave men and women. I was just with my father the other day at the Wall That Heals, the moving Vietnam Memorial. And I've only seen my father cry a handful of times in his life, and actually seeing that memorial brought him to tears. And he said to me there, he just said, you know, for what? So many brave men and women ended up losing their life. And this is why we need to have individuals like myself in the United States Senate to prevent us from going into these forever conflicts.
The your own experience shows that the price of war is paid by more than just the people who bravely go in to fight that war. You've spent your life unable to walk because of your father's exposure to Agent Orange in Vietnam. That seems to be something that, the kind of thing that never crosses Donald Trump's mind.
Yeah, it certainly seems to, that amongst many, many other things. We've got the tariffs that are absolutely decimating our rural communities and our Iowa farmers. We now lead the nation in farm foreclosures. You've got farm suicides that are skyrocketing. The big beautiful bill. You've got more than 100,000 Iowans that are losing their health care. Thousands more losing food assistance just to give tax breaks to billionaires. This is a state that is uniquely hurting, and Iowans are ready for change. And everywhere that we're going, that's what we're hearing. Doesn't matter urban area, rural areas. Iowans are struggling just to keep food on the table and a roof above their head. And we've got a generational chance to be able to win this U.S. Senate seat. So if people are interested, go to TurekForIowa.com and join us, because we can win this Senate seat.
Josh Turek, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
We'll be right back. Iowa Senate candidate Josh Turek gets tonight's last word.